Welcome to DIY Ace. Today I am building this shiny 4-in-1 retro gaming PC. I have such fond memories of wasting hours of my early teens on such games as Doom, Transport Tycoon, Theme Park, Lemmings, and heaven only knows how many other awesome titles. I've since always regretted getting rid of my old Amiga 500, the Sinclair Spectrum, 486 Packard Bell and others, so I recently thought I should have a bit of fun and regress 25 years to the mid-90s, a time when I willingly sacrificed my school exams in favour of shooting demons and building railway empires. So with the goal of finding a 90s PC to play games on, I thought I'd perhaps merely pick up an aged but functional one on eBay. But looking at these, I was really quite surprised at how expensive they could be. Here's an Amstrad 486 with no peripherals for a not-so-bargain basement price of £350, and then a slightly later, unbranded AMD Athlon and Windows 98 for a whopping £300. Hence this project and pile of handsome parts. In planning this project, I was going to try and build a decent retro machine from about 1996, when I was a nimble 16-year-old, for less cost than buying something outright. But you'll see how it started badly, got worse in the middle, but then turned out awesomely excellent at the end. Seriously, I am well chuffed with the end result, so bear with me, and all will be revealed. Given my keenness to make sure that I build a machine that covers the widest possible era of gaming, I wanted something that could natively run DOS 6.22, Windows 3.11, Windows 95, and Windows 98. Hence the decision to go with a Socket 7 motherboard, something like a mid-range Pentium with capability for both PCI and ISA expansion. This one my first purchase, what was advertised online as an ATX-sized Socket 7 board, but what turned up an AT-sized board. I should have looked closer at the photos of course, but what the heck, get the advert right guys. I'll rebox that one and keep it for a future project maybe. £40 down the drain in the meantime. Attempt number 2 at a cheap part, and getting closer with this one, an ATX board for sure with Socket 7, but what was described as quote-unquote cosmetic damage turned out to be heavily rusted ports, 2 broken RAM slots and a cracked IDE connector with bent pins. I am not starting a build with this heap of junk, so again, into the parts bin for a future time, and another £45 wasted. Aha! Here's me thinking that this is third time lucky. A seemingly good condition PC Chips Micro ATX Super Socket 7 board with onboard Super VGA graphics and Soundblaster compatible sound chip. At £45 without needing to buy separate video and sound cards, this should have been just perfect. I spent an evening building it up with a Pentium 133 CPU at a cost of a £5, a new cooler and fan at £12, and 128 megabytes of PC100 SDRAM at £3.99. Popping it into a spanking new Fractal Design case costing £50, and then installing a floppy drive and IDE CD-ROM at £13.32 combined, and a second-hand Cooler Master PSU at £12.10, it started to look good and I started to get excited. Rather than opting for a 25-year-old IDE hard disk, I went for a modern adaptation. Converting to Compact Flash is commonplace now, and this StarTech adapter and 4GB Transcend card I am hoping will be the perfect combination. Compact Flash is by design an ATA architecture, so this adapter plugs straight into the IDE ribbon and I've set it as master on the jumpers. This Compact Flash setup cost £20.38 combined, brand new off Amazon. It fits neatly into the hard disk bay on these motherboard standoffs. Last but not least, I wanted a period keyboard, so I've gone for this snazzy IBM branded PS2 unit. I'm delighted with it. Turned up on eBay and it looks like brand new still, hardly a mark on it, and came with this retro wrist support attached, which is just pure 90s luxury. Coupled with a brand new PS2 mouse, but laser rather than moldable, these two cost £16.78 combined. So that was my first attempt at this retro build. Simple, effective and good looking. At a total cost of about £175 I was delighted. That is, until I tried to turn it on for the first time. Not so good, eh? That beeping from the case speaker is not great. A failed post beep followed by 8 beeps in quick succession? That sounds like a RAM problem. So on to eBay to pick up another stick, and whoop-de-doo, it kicks into life. Ish. After installing DOS successfully, rebooting, I met the same RAM beeps again. 2 bad sticks of RAM? I doubt it. Reseating the old RAM, and wait! Not even a beeping this time, the CPU fan spins, but I didn't get either the posting error code nor a successful boot. Oh dear indeed. Accepting that something is clearly faulty, out with the motherboard for inspection. Perhaps the RAM slots are no good, or perhaps it's something completely unseen. It looks okay, but I do notice this scratching of the PCB around the CPU socket. Not sure whether this is the problem or not, but either way, out with the old again, and in with the new again. I'm using this changeover as an excuse to change tack entirely on this project. It started out about trying to build a cost-efficient and cheap retro machine, but fed up with trying to scour eBay for good cheap parts, I'm going in the other direction, buying best quality parts that are well documented, well supported and well regarded by the retro community. So for a motherboard number 4, I've gone for a Gigabyte board, this one a 586 ATX4, coupled with a later 233MHz MMX Pentium CPU. a processor showcased to the world by Intel in 1996. This is a larger standard ATX motherboard with the reliable Intel 430TX chipset, 4 PCI and 4 ISA slots. I've now gone for a standard ATX size so that I can go for decent dedicated graphics and sound cards, rather than using the cheaper onboard chipsets, like on the PC Cheaps motherboard. Working with separate well-supported cards will be a far more enjoyable experience. This fourth motherboard adds £90 to the total cost of the project so far, including the CPU. For video, I've gone for this 1996 S3 ViRGE card with a DX chipset. I will couple it with a 3DFX Voodoo 2 card at some point, but for the moment, this will do amply for getting the machine going and playing some cool games. At £32, this is just about okay. For sound, I've gone all out here, choosing the metaphorical and literal gold standard for ISA sound. This Creative Labs Soundblaster AWE64 was launched in November 1996, this particular one being the top-of-the-line gold version with 4MB of RAM over the standard card's 512KB. It set me back a cool £110, and whilst that cost did feel like a kick in the ribs, I'm hoping that it should prove to be about the very best and most compatible all-in-one card for playing DOS and Windows 95-98 games. The software package and drivers are great, well supported by these operating systems. Last but not least, I'm leaving nothing to chance, so I've chucked out the old second-hand PSU and gone for this unit, a brand spanking new EVGA 80 Plus bronze unit that is modular and 650 watts. There is some possibility that the old PSU was faulty, causing the posting issues, and frankly, I don't want to connect up what might have been a suspect PSU to these snazzy, expensive components. £75 for this unit. After a bit of fettling the IDE cables, the rest of the fitting was easy, the modular PSU coming into its own for good cable management. The motherboard also helped here, being a logical layout with the IDE connectors right up against the edge of the board. So back together, ready for the moment of truth, take two. Bingo! First time, 1-beat BIOS to show successful posting, and we are into the BIOS. Setting up is pretty straightforward, basically mostly default settings really, then booting again, and I am well happy. Given my keenness to get a system together, I can cover a wide area of games and software yet retain most effective compatibility. I'm going to set up 3 different CF cards, one with DOS 6.22 and Windows 3.11, another with Windows 95 and a third with Windows 98. So down to the dirty work of installing the operating system. First up, DOS 6.22. Once you've seen a single video of DOS installing, you've seen them all, so I'm going to whiz through the footage and save you from any more boredom than is entirely necessary. So after booting, F-disking the drive, and then disk 1, 2 and 3, followed by another reboot, bingo, we're into a beautiful DOS prompt. Next up, the CD-ROM and mouse drivers, courtesy of Phil's Computer Lab. Not only is his YouTube channel totally awesome, and you should check it out, but his website too is full of excellent reading. This CD-ROM driver was downloaded straight from his server. For those paying attention, you'll have also noticed a cheeky copy of Gorilla.bas making its way over from the floppy disk. That bit I am childishly excited about. And there we are with the CD-ROM working. Installing these files and editing the startup files, it takes me back a good 25 years and I love it. The cute mouse driver I tried to install did not work though, so I'm off on the hunt for the original Microsoft Mouse.com, which should work just fine. Hoping that installing Windows 3.11, the For Work Groups version, would be equally straightforward, I was wholly disappointed. Firstly, I selected SVGA on the first settings page, only to find that it outputted wrongly. Then on the second try, I found that I could get through to disk 5 before reaching this unable to read file error on several files. Disappointed, I deleted the Windows folder on the hard drive and went in hunt of a solution. Salvation came by way of copying all the individual disks to a temporary folder on the C drive. All disks worked fine except number 5, so the disk itself must be corrupt. I managed to find each of the missing files I needed online, so I downloaded them, copied them into the disk 5 temporary folder. Heading into the temp folder and running setup straight from the hard disk, not only was the whole process almost instantaneously fast, it is after all installing from the CF card to itself, but it breezed through disk 5 without hesitation, and within minutes I was rebooting and being presented with the gloriously fresh install of the most iconic operating system, the OS that put Microsoft on the map. Back to the mouse issue, when searching for the missing Windows install files, I did happen upon MicrosoftMouse.com version 9. Running that at the prompt to test, and then adding a line to the auto-exec batch file gave me exactly what I needed. Lastly in DOS mode, but certainly not leastly, the sound card drivers. Again, courtesy of Phil's Computer Lab, but equally still available on Creative Lab's own website nearly 30 years later, the 2 files I will need for a basic install. Firstly, I'll need ctcmbbs.exe, which is the software that enables the Soundblaster drivers to interact with the AWE64 since it's a plug-and-play device. Running this executable file in a separate folder will unpack the contents, enabling me to run the installation program. Or not, as according to this message, I do not have enough conventional memory. That's easily solved though by running Microsoft MenMaker included within DOS 6.22. That moved elements of the startup into upper memory, freeing up more than enough of the best stuff to run what is needed. Creative's configuration manager then installed perfectly, followed quickly and just as easily by the audio software itself, the SV Basic executable being the second of the files I pinched from Phil. Installing, updating the startup files, and bingo, we have liftoff. To test it, I ran into the Diagnose program within the Soundblaster folder. It tests for conflicts and then gives a beautiful demonstration of the left and right channels in both 8-bit, 16-bit and synthesized sound. Or rather, it should be beautiful. Gosh, this sounds terrible. Though I won't dare point the blame at the card or the software itself. This is an issue with the genuinely atrocious speakers built into the monitor. I'll be adding decent speakers to the list of urgent things to acquire. Nevertheless, I'm over the moon that the sound card works, as do these drivers. So here I am. I've reached the very point of it all, installing Transport Tycoon and playing it exactly as it was intended all those years ago. An expensive and frivolous venture? I think not. I might have about 50 different scenes caught on camera and about 6 evening works, and including the extra CF cards, operating systems, gains and nuts and bolts, cables, etc., I am in for about £622. Ouch! Anyway, just watching the installation go smoothly and getting into the game has made the whole endeavour worthwhile. Oh, I thank you, Chris Sawyer, for writing this gem, though I fear that my kids will never see me again, for I shall be locked away in the office, wasting away the hours, exactly as I did when I was a kid. Next up was Theme Park. Great fun still, but I'm not going to dwell on that one. Certainly I enjoyed it as a kid, but I can't say that I've given much thought to it since. That said, still nice to have it bundled on the same CD. Satisfied that the games were working fine, next up was the sound card drivers in Windows 3.11. These were pretty easy to sort out and they automatically installed as part of the DOS installation. Met with the new audio software windows, I could play around with the mixer, synth setup, and then I rocked out to the good old timeless Canyon.mid. Is there anything out there that better takes you back in time? I doubt it. Please subscribe for my next update. I'll be cracking on opening up and installing a brand new sealed copy of Windows 95 and getting to the ultimate main event, installing Doom 2.